Swinging and climbing is a great way for the kids to get some exercise and burn off some energy. It gets them outdoors playing and having fun with each other. I'm going to show you how to build a swing set with a climbing wall and a slide attached to it. Before you begin, decide where you'll position your swing set. You'll need a nice level surface and 1.8 metres clearance in front and back for when the swing is in action. If you're building in a public space, you'll need to adhere to the New Zealand playground safety standards. Right, let's crack into it. Now, the main body of this structure is going to be made out of this 90 by 90 glue laminated pine. It's highly treated, so it's great for outdoors, and it's going to stay straight as a die. So what we're going to do is build 3 A-frames, and they're all going to be identical. The first thing I need to do is cut a 22.5 degree angle on the ends. So I'm just going to hook my tape from the short point, and coming up on the inside of the timber, I'm just going to mark 22.50 on either side. Then we're going to square that down and overlap these on those marks. So the 2 marks sit on top of each other. Then I'll pop a 100mm packer under that side and hook our tape on the outside. And we just want to make sure the outside to the outside is 19.15. Now we're going to just come up to the top with a nice sharp pencil, and I'll mark where the posts overlap and measure down half the thickness of the post. So 44mm, rule a line across, and I'll rebate the section out on both posts. I'm just going to move the blade up so it's just on the line. Lock that off. You can also use your drop saw to cut these fins into the timber every 10mm or so. Then, using your chisel, mark a line on both sides, break the fins off and clean the rebate out. Make sure you have the bevel side of your chisel facing away from you as you go. Cool, that's looking pretty good. Now we'll just do exactly the same for our other side. My 2 pieces are cut. We're just going to swap those in together. They look quite nice. Now we need to chop these 2 top pieces off, and this one will just be chopping off directly on that line straight through. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. So what I'm going to do is put a cramp temporarily at the top there, come back down. Once again, just double check our overall of 1915. Then I'll come up 680mm from the bottom and mark for our 6x2 cross brace. The length of my piece of 6x2 here is 1450mm long to the long point, with a 22.5 degree angle on each end. I'll position that flush on both sides and clamp it down. So I'm just going to come down about 30mm directly in the centre and pre-drill for my 100mm bugle screw. Same again on the bottom. Then drive the 2 screws in and do the same on the other side. And at the top with 2 75mm screws. Now it's time to put our coach bolt all the way through our cross member through into one of our legs. Now, because this is play equipment, we don't want our nut and bolt to be sticking out, so I'm going to rebate them in. Now to do that, I've got a 25mm diameter washer, so I've got a 25mm spade bit to rebate roughly 14mm deep. And then I'll switch to a 13mm bit for my 13mm coach bolt and drill all the way through. Then I'll insert my 140mm coach bolt from the underside, add my washer and nut and fix it in place. Then do the same on the other side. Now I'm just going to take another bit of our 6x2. Now I've cut 22.5 degrees on the ends, just like we've done on the bottom there. This is 280mm long point to long point. Now I'll just come down 200mm, and that'll be to the top of our collar tie. And just repeat what we did below with the 2 bugle screws and a coach bolt on either side. This needs to be really strong because it'll be supporting all the weight from our top beam. Then finally use a block plane on all the sharp edges and give it a quick sand, and then make 2 more identical A-frames. Right, our A-frames are looking fantastic. One little thing we need to do as prep is take our bracket, and we're going to pre-drill some holes just like I've done here. I've measured over to the centre, 140 millimetres, squared a line up and drilled a 13 millimetre hole in the spot where they go. Right, I'm not going to put that on now. I'm going to attach this to my beam, and then once all that's ready, I'm going to attach the beam to our A-frames. Okay, now I'm just going to start marking out my top beam to hang all our equipment off. So I've got myself a swing and a trapeze bar. Now I've got a 90 by 90 glue lamp post, and I've cut that to 3/150 long. So I've come in 600 millimetres to the edge of our swing, come in 600 millimetres to the edge of our trapeze, which leaves me approximately 750 in the middle, which is plenty of room. Now I'm going to attach all my equipment using these lovely little swing hangers here. Now we do have a lot more of a heavy duty solid item here for those older kids. Now the next thing I need to do is just start marking it out, drill the holes and attach our equipment. Now we're just going to tighten that up to the end of the thread, and then whatever's sticking out I'm going to chop off. And to do that I'm going to use my angle grinder, but you could also use a hacksaw. Rightio, next step is attaching our bracket to our beam, which will attach to our A-frames. So we're just going to flip that over so the carabiner side is facing up. And our beam will sit on top of our collar tie. So I'll use an offcut of 6x2 as a spacer. And mark out the centre of the hole on the 2 end ones only. 2 will be plenty. And I'll do exactly the same the other end. Pre-drill a hole, 13 millimetres, and attach our bolts. Right, now we're ready to stand up our frames. Okay, that's looking pretty good. I just had a mate come around, give me a hand to put my beam up and attach our bracket. So I've just tightened up our bolts and our pre-drilled holes. One other thing I did was drill a hole in the end to go from our outside directly into our beam with a nice big long coach screw. So the last thing on this side of things I need to do is attach my play equipment. Choose a position on the chains that best suits the age of the kids who'll be using the swing set. Extra length can just be looped back down, and make sure to tighten everything off. What I've done is just stood up my last frame on the outside here, and I've just cut a block that's 800 millimetres wide, clamped that there temporarily so it's the right width of this piece of plywood that's going to go on the back as a climbing wall. So I've cut this sheet of 17 millimetre tannalised ply to 800 millimetres wide by 1.2 metres high. And what I've also attached, pretty randomly, some of these nice little climbing blocks. I've got one last one to put on. So what we've got here is an Allen key screw. So I'll pre-drill a couple of holes, insert the screw and washer and tighten it up with an Allen key bit. Now, the height of this, measuring straight off the ground vertically, is 1.3 metres. Now, my sheet of ply, as mentioned, is 1.2, so that's just going to be off the ground just enough. So I'll position it, clamp it down and fix it in place. Right, I've cut myself a sheet of ply that's going to sit on the top here as our platform. Now, the dimensions of that are 800 millimetres wide, the same as the back. And I've put a 22.5 degree angle on either end. From long point to long point, it's 860 millimetres. And it is 125 millimetres from our square cut to the end of our long point. And it's 90 millimetres, same on that one. It's also a 90 millimetres down. And this one to our long point to our square is 105 millimetres. Now, I've also cut a couple of bits of our 6x2 that will go underneath our sheet of ply. The length of those is 950 millimetres long point to long point, with our 22.5 degree angle on the ends. So we'll put the sheet of ply in here first, and then we'll put our rails in underneath. And I'll just double check that for level. And I'll fix in 3 screws on each end. Okay, I've just got to put my last little bit of 150 by 50 in underneath, 530 millimetres long in between. That's going to sit underneath there. I'll temporarily cramp that on there just until I get some screws into it. Then I'll fix the platform down from the top with 3 screws on all 4 sides. And we'll just get a screw in on the outside into the end of that 6x2 as well. Rightio, the finishing touches. Let's put the slide on. Quite nice and easy, this one. We'll just line it up directly in the centre. 110 either side. A couple of screws. And finally, I'll add 2 handles on the back at the top of the climbing wall. Now, to make this super safe, we'll fix the structure to the ground so there's no chance of it tipping over. When it's in its final position, under the 4 outer corners of the A-frames, dig a 200mm square hole by 300mm deep. Fit a Bomac bracket B75 strap to the timber with the lower end of the strap below the ground level, and add concrete to the hole to hold it all in place. And there's your new swing set, a great investment for the backyard and ready to have heaps of fun. Easy as. Don't forget to subscribe to the Mitre 10 YouTube channel for more handy content, or click here to watch more now.